What is up, dudes, dudettes, and all the beautiful people of the interwebs? Bloodieknux here, aka the Goth the Gamer of LV1 Gaming, here with a video review for Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. Now, for those who don't know, I am a massive JRPG fan, and Eiyuden Chronicle actually comes from one of the biggest cult classics for JRPG fans, coming from the original team that worked on the Suikoden series way back on the PSX. And what's actually interesting about Rising is that it's actually a prequel to the game that they kickstarted as their spiritual successor, when Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. Now, as a prequel, it has a lot to live up to such a wonderful legacy. Now, does it hold up? We're going to get into that. So, want to thank the team over at 505 for giving us the opportunity to play the game early here for this review. So, if you want to check out here, please note that there will be some light spoilers ahead. There's definitely going to be some information here, but watch on at your own risk. So, let's start with the story. Now, where Eiyuden Chronicle actually starts with Rising is that its story is kind of basic. It's more run-of-the-mill. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's a more common setup that we are used to. It's nothing that's absolutely gravitational from the get-go. But it basically sets up with the tale of a young heroine on a journey for a rite of passage for her family. And this is how we're actually introduced to our main character of CJ. Along her journey to a town known as New Neva that has recently been inviting adventurers to come in to go treasure hunting in their barrows due to an open, after an accident, there was actually treasure that has been absolutely been found and surplus, and they're inviting people to come and take a look, all in the name of assisting the town as well as, gaining money. Along her way, she actually runs into a beastman known as Hogan, who's currently being attacked and threatened by bandits. CJ, being the helpful little young heroine that she is, actually decided that the difference between being an honorable scavenger, searching for treasure in places that have been long abandoned, and thieving and banditry is whether their target is alive or dead. So she does the one thing that every great hero does in every start of a story, is to help those who need help. So we actually fight off bandits right from the get-go to help Hogan. And it turns out that he's actually on his way to New Neva as well. From here, he actually takes CJ to the town and actually introduces her to quite a few of the NPCs and helps to set up the introduction to the mayor of the acting mayor of the town of New Neva, which actually helps to kind of start CJ's journey. After being introduced to the town and actually first getting introduced, we are introduced to the mayor, Aisha, who's currently acting in her missing father's stead to help run the town for the current time being. And it's here that the story actually starts to open up a bit, but still tends to be a little bit more common. Here, we are introduced to the system about how to, help the town's folk with rebuilding New Neva and helping to build the town up, as well as starting to work towards the main story of CJ's journey to find this rune lens, because of the fact that she is specifically looking for rune lenses, which are known to be hidden and are quite rare and abundant within the rune barrows, and hoping to find a treasure that's even larger than her father's, which is what she's currently searching for as the rite of passage. And it opens up in a very interesting way, is that it's a very slow burn. And because it's a slow burn, it does take a while for the story to kind of take off. Not everyone is going to be okay with that, and that's fair. Slow burns aren't for everyone. But as time goes on, we get more introduced to the NPCs, the side characters, and a lot of what's going on in the world around New Neva, as well as what is actually hidden in these rune barrows that were opened up due to an earthquake several months before. And I like that because it does add a certain mystery. it takes a while to really grab you, but I think what kind of helps it along as the main quest and main story kind of take its time to open up is it's all about the characters themselves. And I say that because there's so many NPCs that the player will actually get introduced to. Obviously, we were introduced to Hogan right out the gate alongside CJ, and he introduces us to another NPC that becomes a shopkeeper within the town known as Squash, who is the town appraiser. Then from there, of course, we are introduced to the acting town mayor of Aisha, and from there it furthers on. From just smaller NPCs that you'll be interacting with who tend to give a lot of side quests to other NPCs that have a more prominent role with providing materials or a lot of shops that provide upgrades that become necessary throughout the player's runtime. And it's the interactions with these characters, as well as later on as you build out your party, the interactions with the party themselves that really make Eiyuden Chronicle stand out. It's what makes it really enjoyable. It's what makes it really interesting and fun, especially as the mystery of the story starts to open up and we find out about the legend of the rune barrows and find out a lot about the ancient technology that was there, as well as finding out what's happened to Aisha's father. It's really good, but it does take a while to really grab. And I feel with a lot of games today, the story needs to grab from the get-go. For fans of JRPGs, the slow burn of a story is nothing new. It's something that we're very much accustomed to. We do know that sometimes the concept of a story does grab us early on, but to really get deep into the story and it really to start to grab is it takes a while. This is very common with a lot of JRPGs. From Dragon Quest to Final Fantasy to Suikoden and many other JRPGs that have a history, is that there is always a slow burn to them. And yes, we may have a concept of the story from the get-go, but sometimes it takes a while for them to kick off, and that can be hours into it. Where Eiyuden Chronicle has a little bit more leniency is the fact that it is not necessarily the turn-based that a lot of people are used to. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot more interactive, but it still does take time. And for fans who aren't necessarily used to that, it can be off-putting. But for fans who know exactly what they're getting into from the jump, well, you already know what to expect. It took a real while for me to really get into the story, because up to the point where after you get your third-party member, it did take a while for this story to really start getting interesting. Like I said, one of the biggest draws for me, or what kept me invested, was simply the interactions between the NPCs. The NPCs that you do a lot of the work for and interact with in the town, as well as do a lot of the side quests for, their personalities were what really drew me in. And I found that to be enjoyable because the character interactions and the banter is what made it fun. That and alongside the gameplay, which we will talk about here in a little bit. But I feel with this game and any other game, there has to be a certain level of depth when it comes to the story. If you feel that this traditional run-of-the-mill story actually has a very big secret as you get into it, I absolutely recommend it. But do be aware that it will take a while to really get into the game and into the story itself for it to really set you on. But, as I stated, for JRPG fans, you already know this ahead of time. For those who aren't used to that kind of story, be prepared for a little bit of a work. It may take depending on your playstyle and your runtime, it could take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to a couple hours before you really start getting involved into the main story and really start uncovering a lot of the information that may really draw you in. If you're not willing to put in that time, it's understandable. But just know that before you go into the game expecting it to grab you right out the gate. It does not have one of those instant draw storylines. But again, nothing wrong with that. Now, the visuals of this game is absolutely standout, and I love it because of the fact that they really take a unique approach to the pixelated style of art that we've been accustomed to recently. All the sprites in the game are absolutely done in a beautiful pixelated art style that's reminiscent to 64-bit style art, seamless to what we've seen with a lot of classic SNES style games. But what makes it really better, or makes it really stand out, is the fact that the pixelated art style and movements of the characters are all set to a wonderfully stylized and beautifully rendered 3D world, using real lighting effects in a lot of the areas, mixed with the shadows and the detailing, as well as a lot of bloom and particle effects, and mixed with that, with the way that the environment that the player is running on actually looks like a 3D with just a flat character. It actually makes it pop a lot more than you would be used to, and I love that here. Between all of that and the way that the characters are able to show off a lot of emotion between the use of emojis during conversations to the really well done caricatures of characters used in a lot of the conversations using text dialogue, it really helps to give them a lot more personality and a lot more depth when it comes to their expressions without needing to be a hyper realistic 3D model. And I love that. Not every game needs to be a hyper realistic stylized modeling to tell a good story and be able to have expressive characters. And we've seen that a lot more with a lot of games being able to take more unique styles when it comes to their art. And I feel that pixelated games are able to do emotion and storytelling with their characters a lot more uniquely than what's done with hyperrealism. It's what made games like Octopath Traveler and even games like Children of Morta stand out, because of the way that they're able to tell stories and have these really well done expressive characters without needing to have high detail. And with the way that the world is rendered with these beautiful almost 3D style backgrounds, from the environments that you're in to even the way that the backgrounds stretch out, along with just the lighting effects, the shadows, everything just comes together in a really well done package. It's hard to not be completely mesmerized by the art style. And I love that. I love a really wonderful world that you can just absolutely sink into. And this game does not hold back in the art. It's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. It just stands out so well. It's hard to not love what they did with this game, and I'm absolutely enthralled by it. Now, for sound, the game actually has a really wonderful, well done soundtrack. And like any JRPG style game, music always has a big impact. And a lot of that comes from the fact that it's all about if it can set up an ambiance. And I feel that where JRPGs do really well is that their music is able to set the moods, especially when you have such a wide variety of regions. And that's one of the strong points of Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, is that the music is just so minimalistic but so well done that no matter the area that you're going, the soundtracks and the background music that you hear really help to set the mood. From the small little catchy notes and sounds that you hear of the background, that really gives a little nice down to earth kind of feel for the town that's going on as it's growing, as you are around New Neva, as well as the way that it just kind of gives this nice little cozy feeling of a home, of a nice little city, as well as you have the melodic sounds of winds and strings, with very slight accompanying accords as you're journeying through the Great Forest, which helps to make it feel as if you are on that comforting journey through a forest. As well as you have when you're down in the rune barrows. I found the music being just these hard pounding drums that have this really heavy sound, to being in ruins that are very ancient, that have that more mysterious, encompassing sound to it, make it very hard hitting, really matches the ambiance of that region, as well as when you finally make it to the snow peaks. The music becomes very calm, it's very soft, it's very chilling, to say the least, to really match the mood and the atmosphere of being in that winter frozen wonderland. Yes, it may still be dangerous, but it still really sets the mood of matching that area. And I think that each soundtrack matching the background of each of the regions and dungeons that you're in really help to build out a beauty of its ambiance that only matches and pairs with its actual visuals and art style, that really makes each area stand out. It makes it more memorable, and it makes it really something special. Now, gameplay is where this game stands out the most, because gameplay will always be king. And this has a lot of systems when it comes to gameplay. And that is not anything to take for granted. When it comes to JRPGs, there are always a lot of systems that tend to be at work. And sometimes it could be for the better, and sometimes it could be for the worse. Sometimes there's JRPGs that use a very minimalistic system. Other times they have very in-depth mechanics, and it can be a lot for a lot of fans. And that's kind of where this game both shines and also hinders. And I mean that in one of the core concepts of Eiyuden Chronicles Rising is the fact that there is a heavy focus on the town building. There is a lot of focus on the side quests. And that's great, because they do introduce a lot of the town building aspects through the main quest by helping these characters set up shops throughout the town, and lets you know, hey, this shop is for this specific need, and this shop is set for this specific need. Introducing between a smithy to help upgrade your equipment, to introducing an armor shop, a weapon shop, a spot for you to sell a lot of the loot with a trading post that you picked up to help make some money. Maybe you also need an inn to go and rest up to get bonuses to use for your journeying in the dungeons, whether that's to increase your attack power, or to increase your experience, or even to increase your luck to have rare items dropped. There's even a tavern for you to be able to craft food that can either heal, but also also have permanent increase to your stats. Lastly, there's also the fact that there is a quarter that's dedicated to a lot of the magical stuff, whether that's increasing your rune lens uses, which is how you will be able to imbue elements into your weapons, as well as being able to craft those elemental lenses themselves. The focus on the town building is a big part of the gameplay, but with the dedication and time that comes into that, also adds into the grind. And for some people, that can be a lot of time-consuming grinding, as well as a lot of unnecessary side quests. And I say that because another core aspect of being able to do the town building comes into the stamp system that the game introduces in the very beginning. In the very beginning, after CJ meets Aisha, she's handed a stamp card to be able to use to get stamps for assisting the town members around. Now, early on, you find out that there are a lot of quests that can be done, and some of them are really quick, and a lot of them tend to be the traditional, hey, run-of-the-mill fetch quests. Either, hey, I need you to go deliver this to so-and-so, can you run it real quick? You go talk to that person, give them the message, or talk to them and realize, hey, they need you to pick something up for them. You go back, go pick up another item, go back to that person, and then go back to the original quest giver, and boom, you're done. They give you a stamp, and that quest is done. Sometimes it's, hey, I need these materials to be able to expand my shop, or I need these materials for whatever reason. You go, if you already have been farming, maybe you already have the materials ahead of time, you can just turn it in quickly, finish up the quest, and then boom, you're done. Others is, hey, I had this item, it was taken by, this, in this area by an enemy that I may not recognize. And you have to go to a certain dungeon, to a certain area, find that specific enemy, kill them, get that item, and then return it back to the quest giver. The side quests themselves are nothing to write home about. They're very standard. But what kind of made them fun was the fact of it gave us more introduction to the characters and to their personalities. It gave us a lot more interactions with these NPCs. And that was always what's enjoyable, is that it's all about the personality with these characters. And that's where I do enjoy it, because not only is it the interactions amongst the NPCs themselves, but it's also the interactions amongst the party as you're doing these quests that can be quite entertaining and fun. Now, the focus on the grind and needing to invest a lot into the city is also going to be both a big draw for some people and also can be kind of polarizing for others, because that does invest a certain level of grind and interaction that they may not necessarily want to. And you don't necessarily have to. The fact is that if you want to upgrade your weapons, which do become very necessary later on, as well as your armor, you are going to need to invest some time into building up doing a lot of these quests to help these other NPCs. And unfortunately, that is just part of the draw. That is just part of the game. And especially with one aspect that is heavily tied into that, and that's to your combat. Your combat starting out is very basic. Starting only with CJ, she has just a basic 2-hit attack, a jump, and a single aerial attack. But as you upgrade her weapons at the weaponsmith and continue to upgrade their damage capabilities at the smithy, you do unlock new combos, going from a 2-hit combo attack to a 4-hit combo attack, as well as being able to add in aerial combos for being able to attack up and down, as well as also later on with the movement that she gets from being able to double jump to even being able to air dash. There's a lot of the core mechanics that are a part of this town building, and some people may not enjoy that. And it's going to make their sessions and gameplay experience a little bit harder. Sure, you can go without upgrading your equipment, but it is a massive importance. And the fact is that there may be some mindless side quests that are going to need to be done. Now again, you don't have to put in the time for those who don't want to put in the time. It is just going to be harder going on later on in the game, especially since a lot of these other traversal techniques are going to be needed to help exploring later on in the dungeons that you'll be encountering, as well as needing some sort of work put in to open up these other options, especially when it comes to the rune lenses, which do help to open up other areas, as you will need to have those elemental attacks, especially when it comes to fighting enemies of elemental attributes. Now, speaking of fighting, that's actually where it comes down to our 3 main characters. Starting off, we are focused on being introduced to CJ, who is our main heroine, who we are introduced to right out the gate. Later on, we're introduced to a man beast by the name of Garu, a kangaroo man who has a great sword that's twice his size that all fits in his magic pouch. And he is a grumpy old man. But each of these characters do have a different style. And of course, we do have our lovable acting mayor, who is a magic user, which is Aisha. Aisha also joins the party later on. Each character has a very unique skill set and moveset that's very much paired up to their abilities. CJ is a very mobile, fast-paced kind of character. She has a lot of fast-hitting combo attacks. The fact that her unique skill allows her to dodge or dash, so she's able to go in and out of combat really quickly. And later, when you unlock the ability, she can double jump as well as air dash, which helps to open up a lot of versatility when it comes to being able to move in the middle of combat, as well as mixed with her aerial techniques, which allows her to swing up and then do a backflip that also sends her up further, as well as a downward attack that allows her to dive really quickly to get out of the way, as well as to attack anyone directly below her. And when she makes contact, it does send her back in the air with having her do a backflip. Her whole kit is based on being able to get in and out really quickly. Now, Garu, on the other hand, is very much your tank-based character. He is all about heavy damage with his greatsword. He's slower, but he hits significantly harder. Also able to break a lot of enemies' poise, able to stun them, as well as tends to be able to knock them in the air for a lot of combat. This gives a lot more capabilities, especially when you do unlock his other abilities, such as having a charged attack, which does cause a damage wave that can hit multiple enemies. So if you want to stay back a little bit and still put out big hits, he's able to actually charge that up and actually send out a blast amongst the ground. His unique ability actually very much ties into the fact that he is a tank, is that he doesn't have a dodge like CJ does, but instead he offers a parry. Now, this isn't your traditional parry in the fact that obviously if you block an attack at the right time, you can hit right back. But what it does do is that if you block during his parry during attacks, it does completely negate damage. And this can then be used for you to be able to immediately counterattack and be able to punish for being able to block. Now, his timing does take a little bit of time to get used to, but when you do get used to him, is that it really does allow for a lot of heavy combos to continue while having everything blocked with him. And lastly, we have Aisha. She is your long-range base attacker. All of her abilities when you first start out all have non-elements that do help to attract and be able to attack more aerial enemies, as well as also become a very high focus with being able to break any magic users that may have shields later on. But what makes her unique is that, as mentioned earlier, the rune lenses that you find do have elemental abilities. And the fact is that, unlike CJ and Garu, whose attacks stay the same but just become imbued with an element, her kit actually changes significantly because of the fact that with her using magic, depending on the element lens that she's using, actually changes the way that her attacks actually work. If you use the water lens and use ice, her attacks become very fast-paced ice shards that tend to attack the targets. So they are able to travel great distances. Whereas if you use earth, instead of throwing ice shards or just non-elemental energy blasts, they actually turn into boulders. So if you use earth lenses, it'll actually create boulders that you can actually toss up into the air to either hit an enemy or come down on top of them. Or if you go down, it'll actually send a boulder that bounces across the ground. And not only that, this also ties into the link abilities, as link attacks is a special system that after you attack, you can immediately hit another button that ties to another character's attack, which can be used to tie into their information to be able to go into these special long combos that do tie into having another character tag in. And depending on what elements you're using, as well as what style attack that you're using, whether you're using up attack, down attacks, or base attacks, it does change the combos and the way that they work. This does give a lot of flexibility and uniqueness to the way that comboing in the game can be tied to, one, being able to put out high hitting damage, especially in the uses of bosses or on large groups of enemies. And this also adds a versatility because each character has a different attack depending on how you're using it in the combo. So there does add a lot of depth to the combat as you start introducing a lot of these other mechanics, such as the combos from upgrading, as well as adding in the elements that come from the rune lenses. Now, the only thing that makes that really hard is that there is a setback because of how much investment that comes into it by needing to really focus heavily on the town building aspect. Unfortunately, this is just one of the core concepts of the game, and now there will need to be some effort put into it, but the depth that it really all ties together does offer so much when you really sit down and are able to partake into it. And for those who don't want to do that, again, you don't necessarily need to invest the time to grind and really build out the town if you don't want to. There is going to be a lot of points where you are going to make things a little bit harder, but it doesn't mean that it's not doable. The game, when all the mechanics come together, offers so much depth and so much variety. It's hard to deny what the game is capable of doing and everything that it has to offer. There's just going to be a certain level of time investment for fans who aren't used to that when it comes to JRPGs. The game is very much an action RPG, but it has a lot of those JRPG roots, which are very prominent in the way that the mechanics and systems work in the game in tandem. So for those who are willing to put in the time, you are absolutely going to have so much fun with experimenting with the way everything plays together. For those who aren't, you can still enjoy the game without needing to delve deep into it. But you need to understand that there is going to be some effort that does need to be put into to at least get through a majority of everything. You don't have to do all the side quests, but you are going to have a lot of setbacks, as you are going to hit some plateaus where you are just not going to be doing the kind of damage or have the right amount of armor and mobility and capabilities if you don't invest into that. And I think this is where the game can feel like a slog, but there is so much you can get out of it. Overall, my time with Eiyuden Chronicle has absolutely been wonderful, and I've been loving every chance that I had with the game. It is fun. The characters are very unique. They're lively. And while the story takes a while to get into, there's just so much on display. The party is fun. The combat can be deep and complex, as well as the town building can be fun, even if it is a bit tedious. The game does offer so much, and with the fact that this isn't even the full game that we were hoping for, the traditional 100 plus people that we can invite into our party, which is what's going to be hopefully on display in 100 Heroes. And with a name like 100 Heroes, you think that Suikoden was known for having the 108 stars of destiny, so having 108 characters to be able to add to your party, there's only so much that can be expected for what this has on display and what it can offer in the actual full game when that launches next year. All in all, Rising is a fun time if you are into action RPGs and you really want a classic style feel. There is so many great mechanics. The art is beautiful and the sound is wonderful. Yes, it'll take some time. Yes, there is going to be a lot of heavy emphasis on grinding in this game, especially when it comes to understanding the basics of the economy system. But if you're willing to put in that time, Eiyuden Chronicle is well worth your investment. Overall, guys, I really hope that you all enjoyed this review here for Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. And again, we do want to thank the team over at 505 for letting us have the chance to sit down and play this game early. We hope that you enjoyed our thoughts. I hope that you enjoyed my thoughts here on the game. And remember, if you haven't already, hit that follow button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you follow all of our socials and keep up with the team here. We have so much stuff coming up in the works. And make sure, if you want all your news, reviews, and all your gaming goodness, check out the team over at lv1gaming.com. Until the next one, guys, see you then. Peace out and check you later.